How's it going, everyone? My name is DestinyElement. I hope you guys are all doing well, and we are back with another Honkai Star Rail video for today. And today I'm going to be discussing how to fully build and utilize Kafka. So like usual, we're going to be going over Kafka, what she can do, what she does for a team, her abilities, her Lightcone options, relics, and finally we're going to talk about team comp. So if you guys do enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I really do appreciate it and it helps me out, and let's get into the video. So Kafka is the newest Lightning Nihility character, and she specializes in dot damage, but more importantly enabling it. But even so, she still has very respectable scaling on her other abilities. Getting into Kafka's abilities, her first ability is a basic attack that hits a single enemy that scales off of her attack. She also has a skill that does damage to one target and a portion of her attack to adjacent enemies. This skill, whenever it hits a target, is also able to immediately proc all dot damage currently placed on that target. Her ultimate also deals damage to all enemies currently on the field based off of her attack and has a 100% base chance to apply shock before making the enemies immediately take all currently applied shock debuffs, and those shock debuffs also last for 2 turns and they scale off of her attack. Her talent, Gentle but Cruel, is whenever an ally uses a basic attack, Kafka will immediately launch a follow-up attack that inflicts a shock debuff equivalent to her ultimate on the enemy, and this can only happen once per turn. And then as for her technique, Mercy is not forgiveness. This is actually going to attack all enemies in range, and it's going to deal lightning damage equal to 50% of Kafka's attack, and it has a 100% base chance to afflict shock equal to her ultimate on every enemy target for 2 turns. For her bonus abilities, Torture makes it so whenever she uses her ultimate, enemies now receive damage from all currently applied dot sources. Plunder makes it so whenever an enemy is defeated while shocked, Kafka regenerates 5 energy even if she isn't the one to defeat them. Thorns increases the chances for enemies to get a shock debuff from her ultimate, technique, or talent by 30%. And moving on to her Eidolons. Her first Eidolon has a 100% base chance to increase dot damage received from targets by 30%. Her second Eidolon increases all dot damage dealt by allies by 25%. Her third Eidolon levels up her skill and her basic attack. Her fourth Eidolon makes it so when enemies take lightning dot damage, she regenerates another 2 energy. Her fifth Eidolon levels up her ultimate and talent, and then finally, her sixth Eidolon increases the damage multiplier of her shock inflicted by her ultimate, her technique, and her follow-up attacks by 156%, and it makes it last 1 turn longer. So now that we covered Kafka's abilities and her traces, before we get into her builds though, I wanted to talk about some information and some tips to consider when you are building her. The first thing is that there are 2 different types of dot damage in this game. The first is character dot damage, and this dot damage comes from your normal skills, your ultimate, and this is when enemies take damage when their turn starts. This dot damage can be buffed with attack buffs, damage overall buffs, and it also takes into account enemies' defense, resistance, and even debuffs like vulnerability. Then there's break dot, and this dot can't be buffed by characters like Tingyun or Bronya, but the dot scales off a break effect, and when you break the enemy's toughness, there are 2 instances of that dot damage. You have the initial dot that was applied, and then you have the break effect dot. And break effect dot, even though it can't be buffed, it still takes into consideration the enemy's defense, resistance, and vulnerability as well too. So now that we got that out of the way, let's look at Lightcones for her. Getting into Lightcones, her best in slot is going to be her signature Lightcone, Patience is all you needed. This is going to give her an overall damage buff, and it's also going to give her a new debuff to give to enemies called Erode, and Erode is actually going to act like a shock debuff, and it's also going to increase her speed as well. So with more speed, she can apply more debuffs, get more turns, and use her ultimate more often. Her second best in slot would surprisingly be Good Night and Sleep Well. The higher the superimposition is going to be better for this Lightcone, but because you're going to be stacking a lot of debuffs on the enemy, it's actually not really that hard to have max stats, and your uptime on this Lightcone is actually really easy, so you're going to get a huge overall damage increase using this Lightcone as well too. And her third best Lightcone would actually be in the Name of the World, so you can actually get this Lightcone from the Starlight shop, but it's a 5-star Lightcone, so it's going to have base 5-star stats. You get an overall damage increase whenever the enemy is debuffed, and whenever you use your skill, your effect hit rate and your attack will go up for that skill. Now, if you don't have this Lightcone, you can use Fermata. Fermata is actually just as good as in the Name of the World at Superimposition 5. It's a free-to-play Lightcone, and it also gives you a great amount of break effect and dot damage as well too if the enemy is shocked or has Windseer. And now we're going to talk about relics for Kafka. So when it comes to relics, Kafka has surprised the community quite a bit with her scaling, making crit damage not a terrible option for her, but however, because dots cannot crit, 9 times out of 10 building her for dot is actually way better, and it's overall more consistent for her playstyle. So the 4-piece set that we are looking at is Band of Sizzling Thunder. This is going to increase your lightning damage, and because you are constantly using your skill with Kafka, you're always going to have good uptime on your 20% attack buff. The 2-piece set that we're actually going to be running on her is Space Ceiling Station. This is going to increase her attack by another 24%, so that way her dots can actually hit harder. When it comes to her main stats, you're not really going to be building crit damage on her, so for your chest piece, you're looking for attack percent. For her boots, you're looking for speed, and the speed on her boots will make it so that you can fully utilize Space Ceiling Station and so that you can get that full 24% attack buff. Now, the reason why we're not running attack percent on her boots is because instead we're running attack percent on her rope because it has better returns on damage than break effect, and we're also going to run lightning damage on her orb. So you should have plenty of attack to push your Kafka to close to about 3,500 attack and enough speed to keep her dots up as well too. Now, as for substats, there are many great stats that work with her, but you want to prioritize effect hit rate until you hit about 30%. Keep in mind you also get 18% from her traces, so you don't really need that much. Speed and attack percent are also great substats to push your damage just a little bit further, and also because her scaling is really good on her abilities, getting crit rate and crit damage is actually a very viable option as well too, as long as you're not prioritizing it, and once you reach those thresholds on your stats, then you start building it. So now that we covered how to build Kafka, I wanted to get into some team comps that you can run with her. So Kafka surprisingly has a lot of great units that synergize well with her, but also because she does so much damage and has high scaling, she can actually work really well as a solo dot carry. So characters like Sampo and Luca are obviously going to work really well with her. Buffing dot damage enemies take, applying vulnerability, and overall stacking more dots in general is how you want to play Kafka. But there are other characters that work really well with her, so some examples of this would be Asta, Tingyun, and Bronya. Asta has fire dot damage in her kit, she can buff the team's attack, and she has a team-wide speed buff, so Kafka gets more turns, she can get more follow-up attacks, and she can generate more energy for her ultimate, and it's just a really good synergistic kit. Tingyun and Bronya are also really good options because both of them can buff Kafka's attack, and the crit damage on Bronya isn't actually that bad for her, while also dispelling debuffs and advancing her action all the way to the front. Tingyun can regenerate energy for Kafka and has her own lightning damage that she can supply for the team. And then you also have Nihility characters like Pela and Silverwolf that can actually shred the enemy's defense. So you have a lot of good options with Kafka, and honestly all of them can work really well. So when it comes to team comps, your teams are probably going to look something like this, or this, or this, and this, and so on. So overall, Kafka is a very powerful character, and she's definitely a lot of fun to use. I think I'm just blown away by how many units actually work with her, and her team flexibility feels a lot better than I thought it would before her release. So pairing that with how easy it is to build her, I think anyone that's interested in dot teams, or if you're just in need of another damage dealer in general, I think she's a great summon. But yeah, that's basically it. That's gonna wrap up the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is probably a lot shorter than my other guides, but I wanted to try editing it a different way, so let me know in the comment section if you actually like the videos like this. But thank you guys for watching, thank you guys for all the support, and let me know in the comment section if you're building Kafka and who you're running her with, and you know what kind of team you're gonna make with her. So thank you guys again, and good luck with everyone's summons, and I will see y'all in my next video. Peace. I wanna stay for a while.